Hello, welcome to another tutorial from PH Studios. This is from the Advanced Techniques series. Last tutorial we discussed a way of randomizing sprites, and I gave you a pretty basic way of doing that, just using the built-in random class, making an object of that, and generating a random number between 0 and 100. And if it's odd, you load this texture. If it's even, you load a different texture. And you can enhance that by generating a random number between 0 and 1,000,000, and if you have 20 textures, determine if it's using the modulus, if it's a remainder, if it's an even 20, you can load one texture, but if it's any other remainder of 20, you'll load 19 other textures. So that's a pretty basic way of randomizing sprites. And at the end of the tutorial, I told you we were going to discuss the mouse, but I forgot that the gameplay object comes before that. So I will discuss that in this tutorial. However, I will not go into a full implementation tutorial. I don't have notes for it because it's pretty basic. So I'm not going to bore you with a half an hour, 40 minutes of pretty basic understanding of the gameplay object. I will have you download the sample, and I'll walk through the sample in great detail, but I will not actually go into the coding and do it from scratch. So premium members, you can go to the usual topic in the premium forums and the Advanced Techniques series topic, and it's number 13 or 14. Regular members and guests, you'll have access to this before the tutorial is released. If you go to the main website at phstudios.com, on the right side, just like we have the basic training project files, you will have access to all the XNA Advanced Techniques samples, so you can go through it this way. Now this will be released on this weekend, and you will have access to every tutorial that I'm doing for the premium members a week or two after this weekend. So expect when I have you download a sample, you can get to it from this website, and there'll be a blog post about that too, so keep an eye out for that, and I'll keep reminding you whenever I have to have you download a sample. I'll remind both premium members and the public. So go ahead and download the gameplay object number 14, tutorial number 14, download its sample and unzip it. Now when you unzip it and open it, you will have access to the complete gameplay object sample. And just to easily demonstrate, I'm going to run this sample and do play screen, and that's all you get. Just, you can't move it or anything. So that's a pretty boring sample, but it's back end that you're worried about. So open up the gameplay object class, and you'll see an object status enumerated type. And here you want to keep your basic object status, the ones that are across every single gameplay object in your class. Now some objects might have additional status, and some objects might not, so just keep this as general as possible, like active, dying, or dead. That's general because that can affect every single object in a game regardless of what type you want it to be. Now the gameplay object class itself, you want to actually have an object of the object status and a public property for that, and get only, because the object status will be set in the update and other methods inside of the class itself, so you do not actually need to set that manually. Then you go into the graphics data, and that's like the texture and the rectangle. And the rectangle from the XNA Basic Training Series. We talked about the rectangle being used as a position and stuff like that, so check that out. The origin is always defaulted to the center of the texture. You can change that by just, if you want to use 0, just return vector 2.0. And check out the Basic Training Series. I discussed the complications of origin and what you can do to counteract that. The opacity of the texture, or the game object. And then the alpha, which is just opacity times 255, and byte that. And the color of it, and then the protected property. And when you get it, you return a new color, and then you pass it color.r, color.g, color.b, and then you pass it the alpha value. So that way, if you want to easily change the opacity, you can set the opacity 50%, and then when you want to draw it, just use the color property instead of the standard way of drawing it, which is color.white. Then we have physics like position, velocity, and acceleration.